Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Ling Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's stories. UC Berkeley canceled the classes after police warned of a potential active shooter on campus. A suspect has been apprehended. Los Angeles County's outspoken sheriff says the Board of Supervisors is working against the public safety. He held his own press conference to respond to a recent LA budget proposal. And Elon Musk is making big moves in the state. Not only did his electric car company Tesla beat financial expectations recently, but also he's offering up enough money to take control of Twitter. Our first story, UC Berkeley was placed under shelter in place on Thursday. Police later gave the all clear to return to normal. Law enforcement have detained one individual who allegedly made threats to shoot staff members.
A UC Berkeley student was reportedly detained after making threats to shoot people on campus, triggering a campus-wide lockdown. At 9:30 a.m., a campus-wide emergency alerted people to stay inside and away from windows and doors. In-person classes were canceled for the day. UC Berkeley police said there was not an active shooter on campus, but they were actively looking for a person who may want to harm specific individuals. UC Berkeley police lifted the shelter in place around 1:40 p.m. the same day after searching for the student. A UC Berkeley student told NTD that the suspect reportedly had a psychotic breakdown and threatened to shoot staff members.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva decided to host his own press conference to discuss the county's Board of Supervisors' proposed budget. He said the current budget is limiting his department's ability to hire and uphold public safety.
Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva criticized the county's recommended $38.6 billion budget for the 2022-23 fiscal year, specifically for its lack of public safety funding. In a press conference on April 20th, he claimed the Board of Supervisors is devaluing public safety by reallocating the Sheriff's Department's funds to alternative programs and maintaining a hiring freeze.
So right now we're in a free fall and we're shrinking. So if that's the board's, what a commitment to public safety looks like, I fear for the safety of LA County.
County CEO Feature Davenport said during an April 18th press conference that Villanueva requested a $5 million budget increase, which the county denied. Under the proposed budget, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department will receive $3.6 billion, about the same as the current fiscal year. The board proposed an additional $12.3 million to expand the Sheriff's Academy for training deputies and $15.3 million to close the men's central jail in downtown Los Angeles.
It also reflects, this is the board's language, it reflects a commitment to public safety. That's not a commitment to public safety. You're giving me $12 million, but you're restricting my ability to hire the people and lift the hiring freeze on the Sheriff's Department is not a commitment to public safety.
Despite the funding for the Sheriff's Academy, Villanueva said the county-imposed hiring freeze is limiting his office's ability to hire civilians to support essential personnel or sworn officers.
They did discuss, however, somehow how to increase hiring for the fire department, health services, and all these other entities, but not the Sheriff's Department.
Villanueva cited his office's inability to hire new staff for the LASD's Forensic Crime Lab.
When you're restricting academy class, you can't hire civilians. We have our crime lab, which is overwhelmingly professional staff. We have not hired a single person since I've been in office. And as they're aging out and retiring, we're not replacing them. We're losing institutional knowledge, we're losing the capacity to train their replacements, and of course we're degrading the capacity of the crime lab.
According to a March statement by the county CEO's office, the sheriff can still hire critical positions such as officers and 1,000 non-sworn reserve officers. As for the $15.3 million to close men's central jail, it will not fund a new facility, but will be split between the LASD to close the jail and the Health Services Department. A report from last year said it will take between 18 to 24 months to transport inmates to other jails. The county plans to release about 4,500 inmates to residential programs and community treatment services. Villanueva said the transport of inmates to other jails is not a viable option for the inmates.
They hired a consultant. They pay the consultant God knows how much money, and the consultant told them you cannot close Men's Central Jail without a viable alternative. The fact is, we cannot close Men's Central Jail without that alternative. We need to provide a constitution level, minimum level of care for all of our inmates in our custody. We can't wish away 4,500 inmates.
Villanueva also criticized the county's decision to reallocate $100 million from the LASD's budget to the alternative incarceration program, Care First, Jail Last, known as Measure J. A spokesperson for supervisors Sheila Kuehl, Hilda Solis, Holly Mitchell, and Janice Hun did not respond to a request for comment.
Elon Musk says he's lined up the money to buy Twitter, $46.5 billion. Musk is already Twitter's second largest shareholder, and he's offered to buy all the shares he doesn't own for $43 billion. Today, in a SEC filing, Musk said he has lined up commitment letters to finance a deal. It's unclear if he will sell some of his Tesla stock to cover part of it. The filing banks, including Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and Barclays, have agreed to help out. A Twitter spokesperson said they received the proposal and will review it. Earlier, Twitter's board of directors didn't seem interested. The board announced a poison pill move to make it harder for Musk to acquire the company. A filing today hinted that Musk could try sidestepping the board and taking his offer directly to shareholders. Speaking of Elon Musk, Tesla released its first quarter earnings, beating expectations on revenue, along with the record margins. NTD's Phil Zhou has the story.
Tesla reported close to $19 billion in revenue for the first quarter, beating out analyst expectations by nearly $1 billion. Earnings per share came in at $3.22, when analysts expected only $2.26. Tesla stocks rose over 5% in after-hours trading.
When does the narrative shift from people realizing that Tesla is just one of many electric vehicle makers and maybe is getting too highly priced?
John Engel is president of Almington Capital. He is also a contributor who covers Tesla and more on the financial website Seeking Alpha.
Tesla's priced differently because it is more than an automaker. Unfortunately, that is becoming increasingly less the case in that its revenues from non-automotive continue to either decline in the case of solar deployments or grow at a slower pace than its automotive business.
In Tesla's energy department, solar deployment dropped by almost a half to 48 megawatts year on year. Engel says Tesla's big promises, such as the robo-taxi by 2024, is likely to fall short.
Holding it at the current price is probably not optimal because you're looking at a company that will have to eventually meet these massive expectations, and even when it has done so, like say a decade out, it's still probably even if its share price is flat for the next decade, would still be significantly overvalued for what it is.
Tesla is currently trading at around $1,008. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
Going the opposite direction in the stock market, Netflix shares lost over a third of their value on Wednesday after the company reported its first drop in subscribers in a decade. It's left Wall Street questioning the company's growth in the face of fierce competition and post-pandemic viewer fatigue. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
The stock has been a solid performer over the past few years, but competition is finally catching up with the streaming giant.
10 years of fabulous growth at Netflix has finally hit a wall. I think the rest of the content industry has responded to Netflix having disrupted the business so thoroughly over the last 10 years.
In an effort to calm nerves, company executives told analysts on Tuesday they were looking to offer an advertisement-based tier over the next year or two, and promised a crackdown on password sharing, a long-running problem for the service. Netflix's rivals already have ad-driven versions or are considering one. HBO Max offers an ad-supported subscription, while Disney Plus recently said it would launch an ad-based tier.
Well, streaming has become a much more competitive space, really since Disney Plus launched about 2.5 years ago. Since then, we've had Discovery launch its own service, Paramount launch its own service, and others. So it really, for all the traditional network groups, it's all about their own streaming services.
Demand for fresh and engaging content is also increasing, forcing Netflix and others to think about bigger budgets for production, even as costs increase in an inflationary environment. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. There is a lot of money going towards California colleges. On one side, the state hopes to make attending college debt-free for certain groups of people, while a community college district is providing housing for homeless students. A zero-emission ferry is now in Ferry in the San Francisco Bay. We'll look at what's powering the vessel. And a one-of-a-kind opera just finished a 3-day performance in Los Angeles. The catch? The actors are all deaf and performed in sign language. We'll look at that and more when we come back on California Today. Many university students in the state may soon receive a stipend to help pay for college. It's part of California's plan to make college debt-free for certain individuals. NTD's David Lam reports.
California lawmakers want students to attend its public universities without having to take out loans. The Middle Class Scholarship 2.0, or the debt-free program, is aimed to get its first round of funding this summer. The exact amount for qualifying students vary, but could be several thousand on average. It takes into account other financial aid. Governor Gavin Newsom and lawmakers promised $632 million to fund the expansion of the revamped program for non-tuition costs. According to CalMatters, if that money appears in the state's budget this June, 246,000 California State University students and 114,000 UC students could receive this aid. The new program takes effect in 2022-2023. The state's Legislative Analyst Office says once fully implemented, both students and campuses will have fewer incentives to keep their cost of attendance low. The report indicates that students will be paying similar prices regardless of their living arrangements. This could lead some students who have the option of living at home to instead choose to live independently off campus or on campus, with the state bearing the additional cost. Similarly, campuses could increase housing charges, with the state bearing the costs. They recommend lawmakers to closely monitor the student housing data and costs and adjust the program awards if necessary. David Lam, NTD News, California.
A Southern California school district is planning to fund a pilot program for homeless students. The Los Angeles Community College District approved $1.5 million to house over 100 homeless students. The money will be used to fund the pilot program, so students will have food, Wi-Fi, and mental health support. In a statement, the district board president said too many of our students are housing insecure and have had their studies heavily impacted by the lack of a safe and quiet place to sleep and study. I thank my colleagues for this board vote. It's a significant step forward in helping these students meet one of their most basic needs. Funding comes from the state. The district aggressively advocated for funding during the past school year. The new student housing agreement began April 13th and will run until next year. The San Francisco Bay will soon have a new zero-emissions ferry floating in its waters. It's propelled completely by hydrogen fuel cells, and officials hope it's a sign of change to come on the high seas.
It's the first vessel, first commercial vessel in the world that's got that propulsion system.
Pace Raleigh, chief executive of Switch Maritime, said he conceived of the idea for the one-of-a-kind ferry, aptly named Sea Change, while living in New York City, trying to find ways to decarbonize the maritime industry.
I was actually riding a ferry between Manhattan and Brooklyn. I was living in Brooklyn at the time and really thought that this could be a fit for this new technology, for decarbonized technology.
The 70-foot ferry will service multiple stops along San Francisco's waterfront. Built at All-American Marine Shipyard in Bellingham, Washington, Sea Change is undergoing tests with the U.S. Coast Guard in nearby Puget Sound. Officials hope it is a harbinger of the changes to come on the high seas. In the engine room, 3 hydrogen fuel cell stacks whir away while helping power 2 propellers that move the ferry along at a top speed of 20 knots.
The system is automated so that when it needs power, it starts up the fuel cells.
All-American Marine Project Manager Jeff Socal stands at the helm of the Sea Change, pressing buttons on a touchscreen that engage automated systems communicating with the engine room.
This is going to be the next standard, is fuel cell-driven vessels. They're clean, they're efficient, and they make sense economically.
Advocates say hydrogen fuel cells are cleaner than other carbon-cutting methods as they only emit water and heat, but the technology has only seen limited usage in many industries on concerns about high costs and the bulky size of fuel cell systems. But it could help the industry move towards a zero-emission future as it struggles to hit sustainability targets.
The shipping industry uses, on average, around 300 million tons a year of carbon-intensive fuels. The impacts of that, I think, are pretty well known. Shipping industry emits on average about 1 billion tons of CO2 and other greenhouse gases a year.
Raleigh believes the Sea Change could be a game changer.
We can use this technology on all sorts of vessels. This also helps prove that hydrogen-based fuels can work in maritime, and I think that's a really big sort of factor for other ship owners to get comfortable adopting this technology and investing in it.
If all goes to plan, Raleigh says the boat will be delivered to the Bay Area in late May and will be serving passengers by June.
The Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra teamed up with Deaf West Theater last week to bring a new experience to their audience. In what may be a world first, they performed a classic opera for the first time with deaf actors.
Theatergoers in Los Angeles got a sample last week to experience what the world of the deaf is like. The Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra teamed up with Deaf West Theater for 3 days of staging a classical opera at the Walt Disney Hall in downtown Los Angeles. The group performed Beethoven's only opera titled Fidelio.
On Thursday, the first time Fidelio will be played here, we will be witnessing something that is unique. It's the first time ever in history. The first time an opera will be played in this way. An opera composed by a deaf composer, centuries ago. And as Gustavo was saying, we are now understanding what happened inside Beethoven. Why his music, why Fidelio is so deep, is so profound. And I think it's the right words, it's like a revelation for all of us.
The cast consisted of opera singers and deaf stage performers. While the opera singers traditionally take the role of performer, this time they coordinated with deaf actors who signed the lyrics in their performance. The production found unique challenges when pairing a deaf actor and a singer. Kimberly Mitchell, the production manager, described how much adaptability the team needed.
The challenge with opera is that it's very fluid and it's not repetitive. The tempos change throughout it, and night to night it even changes. The conductor, kind of changes how he conducts things each night, and so that is something that is challenging.
Yet the production worked around these challenges by using screens which are not visible to the audience. The screens let the ASL choreographer know where the deaf cast should be. Also, the opera singers themselves give cues such as opening a letter or sitting down or standing up to let the deaf actors know where they are in the music.
One of the things that we've done is one of the ASL choreographers, Colin, is backstage, and one of our interpreters, Elizabeth, is kind of following the music and helping keep that tempo so that the actors have an idea of that. They're watching Gustavo, they have monitors to see him as well, but we're just kind of adding all those additional support things that we can to be able to reinforce that tempo, and as it changes, allow them to fluctuate with that.
Others hope to bring audiences to the deaf world through the arts.
It's an opportunity to make them or to pull them into our world, and it can only lead to good things, I think. I do think that seeing one of our shows is more powerful, is the most powerful way, really, of informing the world about our language and our culture. And I think 2 hours in one of our theaters is better than reading 500 pages in a book about the deaf community, for example.
The production hopes this will bring future changes and that other operas will follow by incorporating a deaf cast in their productions.
Now to NTD's Thomas Christian for an update on sports.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. A pair of death-defying pilots plan to intentionally nosedive their planes before leaving the controls to simultaneously jump from one plane to the other in what they are calling the first ever mid-airplane swap. Once inside the other pilot's planes, the daredevils will take the controls, correct the nosedive, and safely land, all in under 1 minute. The pilots, Luke Eikens and Andy Farrington, have been training for the daring stunt over coastal Southern California for weeks and plan to pull off the feat on Sunday over the Arizona desert. To make it feasible, a team of engineers had to develop a specialized flap on the belly of each Cessna 182, as well as a unique autopilot that stabilizes the plane and maintains the nosedive straight to the ground. The flap works to slow the planes down as they barrel towards the earth. The plane swap will be broadcasted live on Hulu in the United States and on Red Bull TV outside the U.S. at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Following up on our coverage from last week, former tennis world #1 Serena Williams and 7-time Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton have joined Martin Broughton's bid to buy Premier League club Chelsea. A source close to the bid told Reuters on Thursday. Former Liverpool chairman Broughton's consortium includes World Athletics president Sebastian Coe and wealthy investors from around the world, who the group says all want to maintain Chelsea's top status. Who own sports teams including the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers, are also backing Broughton's bid. Williams and Hamilton have pledged an estimated £10 million each to the bid, Sky Sports reported. Hamilton's representatives later confirmed that the 37-year-old had joined Broughton's bid, but said the financial figures quoted in the report were not accurate, without disclosing any details. Williams is already an investor in the Los Angeles Angel City FC, which plays in the National Women's Soccer League. Final bids for the club, which was put up for sale by owner Roman Abramovich following Russia's invasion of Ukraine before sanctions were imposed on the oligarch by the British government, were submitted earlier this month. Others on the shortlist to buy the English Premiership club are LA Dodgers part owner Todd Boehly and Boston Celtics co-owner Steve Pagluka. A consortium led by the Chicago Cubs owning Ricketts family pulled out of the running. The club sale is being overseen by U.S. bank Rain Group. As always, I'm Thomas Christian, and thanks for tuning in.
And that's all for tonight. You can join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. If you have any news tips or ideas for our show, or you just want to let us know how we're doing, our email is california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.